Hey, my name is TJ. I'm a person in long-term recovery. For me, that means I haven't had a drink or a drug since August 9th, 2016. I'm here hosting the Hope, Health, and Healing podcast. I have on a special guest today. I would love to hear more about your story. I know you're an open book, and I know you have some amazing things that, you would like to share about your journey and stuff. So let's get started. You want to introduce yourself today?
Yeah, I'm Evan Field. I'm currently healing or in the process of healing mental health issues such as, bipolar disorder and OCD. I've struggled with it my whole life. I've been kind of through ups and downs and, have gone through different types of healing processes and coping methods and skills. And sometimes it's been more intense and sometimes it's been less intense. So it's been a journey, but um, yeah, I mean, I'm like you said, an open book, so I'm happy to talk about it. I think it's important to talk about because I think, especially with OCD and bipolar disorder, those are often misunderstood health conditions, and I think a lot more people, might have them and they don't realize it, or people have been misusing it and they might reconsider. Because I've heard a lot of people, talk about things like with bipolar, and it's more of just like an adjective, and
Yeah.
but it means something. So
You hear people like, "Oh, it's because I'm bipolar. It's because I'm bipolar," and it's like, "Well, no, you just have mood swings."
yeah, yeah, 100%, which is, still something that, should be managed. But I just love to bring awareness to the fact that it's something that is a lifelong battle, but it's a winnable battle. So
Tell me about the first time you experienced symptoms of OCD or bipolar in your life. Like, how young were you? What was that like?
yeah, I think what was hard for me was I really didn't get diagnosed officially until I was older, until I was around my sophomore year in college. I had always struggled with mental health problems from pretty much until 11 or 12, like really when like puberty started.
What was that like? Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was weird because I was hearing, especially, I was growing up in the 2000s, mental health was not really as talked about. And I was, hearing about puberty and mood swings, and you're going to feel weird. And I was like, I feel weird, but I feel like a different level of like, it feels like very heavy. It started very heavy. And then it wasn't until probably my sophomore year of high school when I had kind of my first moment of depression where I felt very alone and very isolated and it was a different kind of sadness. And at first I thought I just kind of had, I was depressed. And I also, I was very angry. I was very angry all the time. Didn't know why I'd get angry.
Mhm.
I never considered that I had bipolar disorder, for example. I never really thought it was again, I didn't really understand it as well. So when I got to college, I really started experiencing just dramatic mood swings that they just kept getting progressively worse. It was like I was going up a roller coaster that was never gonna never like you weren't getting to like the part where it like peaks and
Yep.
breaks. I was like, what is going on? And that's when they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder 2.
Mhm.
Uh, and it made a lot of sense. It was kind of jarring. So I was like, whoa, like, and then it kind of clicked. And with OCD, it, it showed up way earlier in my childhood. I would be very obsessive about interests. I'd be very obsessive about specific routines,
Mhm.
thoughts. So that was a little easier. That kind of I wasn't even not aware, but I was dealing with repetitive thoughts and intrusive thoughts. I didn't know what they meant. And it wasn't until I started seeking therapy or counseling that it helped me understand some of the things that I was going through and put like a label on them.
What were things you did? So I'm a person who also has OCD, and like for me, they treat it through anxiety and depression, like a simple SSNRI, and it's been something that's been very effective. So one of the things I struggle with with excessive compulsive disorder is checking. So like I'm a lock checker,
Hmm.
right? Or like I like numbers, like the pattern of a number is very soothing for me,
Hmm.
right? And like that's what essentially helped me get into. I don't want to say help me. I want to say like push me into drugs and alcohol, right?
Hmm.
Because when I drank or when I did whatever substance, it would alleviate the symptoms of excessive compulsive disorder, right?
Hmm.
So what were things that, like, you found yourself obsessing over, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing at all because honestly, I think it's a common thing that people obsess over and they don't realize that it might be a deeper symptom of OCD. For me, it's death, dying,
Okay.
not even wanting to die or thing, just the concept of dying, what happens when you die. And it's not like a curiosity, it's not anything like that. It's just like these intrusive thoughts like you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen and it's just these repetitive intrusive thoughts and it's very jarring. For me, I never grew up as a person of faith, just because of the family that I grew up in.
Mhm.
So it was hard for me to find some kind of relief from those intrusive thoughts when I didn't have a foundation to build upon when it came to understanding them. And then also, I didn't have kind of a not saying that you need a belief system, but I didn't have any kind of system in place where I was like, well, I guess they're not true, or I guess they are, just stuff like that. So it was just overwhelming for me. That's always been the most repetitive, intrusive thought for me, and I think a lot more people struggle with that I've had people talk to me about. And they're like, "Oh, I thought I was crazy for thinking about it all the time." I was like, "No, like it's intrusive, it's irrational, but it's you've also hyper fixated on it because it's obsessive."
Yeah,
For me, so I was gonna say for
please.
compulsive behaviors for me was um, drinking and smoking, marijuana, a lot of impulsive decisions with people, in particular, um, just dopamine, like just searching for dopamine, quick dopamine fixes, no long term. I didn't know what would fix that long term because for me, it just felt like an inevitable fact that my OCD was just making worse.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, I just got to make myself feel good in the moment as best as I can. So for me, it was less checking or anything like that. It was more, I need to do actions that I feel like it was compulsions. It was impulsive actions. That was my like compulsories.
That makes a lot of sense. At what point did you look at this and say, like, "This is completely unmanageable for me now?"
This became unmanageable, honestly, this year when pretty much early on in the beginning of 2026, end of 2025. It was one of those things where it was kind of building for a while. Specifically, I had a pet that I was very close to
Mhm.
that died and died with me there. And it was, I've been blessed to have had at least no very, very close family pass away. So it was really my first experience with like a loved one passing away. And it triggered a thing in me that grew for at least it grew for 3 years. And it didn't help with the bipolar disorder that I was having because that a lot of that's like very, manic depression. It's a lot of just really being depressed. And it crept up because I just didn't even realize how bad until basically early this year decided to seek out some more intensive treatment because what I was doing at the time was I was taking SSRI
Okay.
and I was doing individual therapy, but it was really, every couple of weeks or, every other week.
It wasn't enough.
It really wasn't enough. And I didn't know kind of, how to handle it. 'Cause for me, it felt like what I'm doing is what I could do. And and nothing's going to help.
Mhm.
Um, and so it really got to a point pretty much winter's always been bad for me.
Okay.
I'm always it's kind of always a miserable time. Just
You have the, like, you feel like you're, like, stuck and
yeah, it's just the darkness too. Like it's just dark so early. I just feel very like just hybrid. Like I want to hibernate. It doesn't help the depression.
Mhm.
I think the season I definitely have like a seasonal kind of mood disorder on top of it, like undiagnosed. But yeah, I think the winter just gets bad. And this winter was just particularly really tough. So um yeah, it was really up until February. It was when it just got like unmanageable.
Okay. You knew it was time to make that decision. Bring me through that, right? Like, that moment of clarity, like that, like, "Let me ask for help."
Yeah, so I was really with my therapist, and we had been meeting more frequently. And she was like, "I feel like you might need a more intensive program in person." We were meeting online. I think
Mhm.
in person therapy has definitely helped a lot more. it kind of started. I've been seeing the same therapist who is, fantastic, but we've been seeing since COVID. So it's just stayed online. I think in person was definitely helpful, but I didn't even realize that, a more intensive option was available. I just thought you'd just be in a hospital if you, for example, like I didn't realize that you could seek options beside of that. I
Mhm.
think mostly because a lot of people I knew had mental health problems that were reaching like a crisis point, which just got sent to a hospital or sent to a guess I don't know what else it'd be, but yeah,
Yeah, psychiatric
yeah,
ward.
psychiatric ward, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that's like that common misconception where it's like I have these symptoms and like they're gonna lock me up because I have these symptoms and like essentially that's just not true, right?
Mm,
Like there's like a lot of people who have that. I speak to a lot of people on the phone, do a lot of intakes and stuff, and I think like I think about my experience. I remember I was doing an intake for an IOP program,
mhm,
and I was like, only substances. I don't have any mental health like that. Trying to give him the runaround, and he's like, "Yeah, you ever had any thoughts of suicide?" And I was like, "Oh, absolutely not." And he's like, "Have you ever had any thoughts of suicide?" I was like, "Dude, no." And he's like, "Have you ever had any thoughts of suicide?"
mm,
And I'm like, well, he's like, "I've never met a person who has thrown their entire life away with drugs and alcohol and not thought about suicide,
mm.
right? Like, this isn't to lock you up. This is so I can help you, so I can better
100%.
understand you, right?"
Yeah, like for me, it was I got to a point with my therapist where I was kind of at that point where it's like I've never in my mind been suicidal. I've never planned it out. I've never wanted to, like I've never wanted to, but I was at that point where it's like it would be maybe better if I wasn't here. Or she's like, no, that still is like a something that is considered, an ideation and stuff like that. And it was really helpful to hear that because it brought a lot of relief off my shoulders
Mhm.
because I felt like I was in this like weird kind of limbo where it's like, no, I want to be here. That's like you don't understand. Like I want to be here. So it was hard for me to answer that question. I felt like when it was also asked because it's like, no, I don't want to, but then it's just like your head sinking. Like no, it'd be better off if you weren't around. And it's like balancing that.
Yeah.
It's
Dying would be better than dealing with this.
yes,
In my head, like, even though that's an irrational thought, it's like
mhm,
something what I felt like, right?
yeah. I think more people need to hear that too. Where it's like that's like I think there's a big not that there shouldn't be it. I don't know how to word this, but there's this big stigma around being suicidal.
Yep.
And I think what I mean by that is everyone thinks that if you're suicidal, you're about to jump, like, do something. You're in that moment, like you're suicidal, like you're like next day you're not gonna be here. And I think it keeps a lot of people from not talking about it because it's like a spectrum of it. You start out small and then it grows more and more. And when I realized that, when my therapist helped me through kind of really realizing that mentality, they really helped because it didn't mean that there was anything wrong with me. It didn't mean that um, I was even and necessarily at risk of being at harm there, but it was helping me address thoughts that I was having by being honest about them.
Yes, like a passive suicidal ideation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like, "Oh, it's okay to think that way," but it's like, "Okay, you're okay. We're gonna address this."
Mhm.
And it's not this big scary monster that you have to deal with alone and that's just gonna grow and grow and grow. And I think if more people were honest about how they felt like that, I think it would lead to a lot more. And that's not to shame people who are feeling that way. I know it's incredibly difficult to talk
Mhm.
about. I just think that like if more providers and people like that were upfront about it's a spectrum kind of feeling. I think it would
Yes.
help a lot of people because it helped me realize that.
Mhm. I do think that stigma is a big piece on preventing people from actually getting help, like a help that they need, right? Like we think about the world in a certain way, right? Because of what we've learned about it, right? So it's like as a person who struggled with substances, has struggled with mental health, it's kind of like, well, if I tell everybody, what I am or what's going on in my life, like this is going to have severe consequences, right? And like, especially now as a person who's like out about their recovery, right? Like I don't need to hide it. I immediately introduce myself. Everybody in here knows I'm in recovery, right? Like I think it's just it takes away that like breath of like I don't need to hide this.
Mhm,
I don't need to I can be who I am, right?
mhm. 100%. I think the thing is like, like I'm, dealing and recovering from a lot of mental health, um, trauma and mental health problems. But at the same time, I'm a very successful person. I have a very, great life, and I think that's what's also hard about it too. I think people struggle with that, where it's like the stigma plus it's like, well, I don't have a lot of things going on in this, so it should be causing this. Um, and you still struggle with problems. You still feel that way. You still go to bad coping mechanisms. For me personally, I have a great family. I have a wonderful partner, um, and a lot of cool things that I do with my art. But at the same time, I feel such isolation sometimes that is all created a lot mentally. It's all stuff that's in my head, but it's hard to talk about because externally everything is pretty good, and on the surface it's good. And I think that's also where the stigma comes from.
Yep.
What's like, oh well, you have it all together. Why are you struggling with this? Why are you doing that? Why are you going that route? Why are you dealing with it that way? And it's hard to understand sometimes unless you feel it. And sometimes it can't even put it into words. Like it's hard to tell someone like I feel like I'm rotting from the inside today. Like I feel like I'm just hollow inside. And that just sounds like to them like, oh, like but it's like no, it's like how I feel. It's like it's and some days I don't. And to some people they don't understand that. And I can understand why if they haven't felt it, but it also makes it hard to talk about.
What's your recovery like today? Like, tell me about those things that you engage with that really keep you kind of grounded to your recovery.
Yeah, I really enjoy doing art. I run my own illustration and design business, and I enjoy creating just different kinds of logos and kind of merch designs, and then just stuff on my own. I do a lot of metal and heavy metal design work, and that's where a lot of my clients are from. And it helps because that's also in a space with a lot of openness about mental health. It's a genre of music I've always been drawn to since I was a kid because it was to me the only genre of writing about what it felt like I was going through. So I've always connected with it, and my art has always kind of been based on that. So I listen to a lot of music. I connect a lot with that community, and my art is grounded a lot in that culture. So it's a lot of music, a lot of art, just really kind of enjoying the time that I have, not in like a morbid way, but just like, oh, like these things are going on in my head, but I still have the ability to do everything I want to do. So really kind of seizing the day, so to speak. And something that I've learned in the therapy that I've done and the work that I've done the last couple of weeks and months is that motivation you have to really find within yourself. It's not going to come from anything else. Like if you're waiting for it to come, it's just not going to happen. And that's been really kind of life changing. Where it's like, okay, I have to kind of seize the bull by the horns and be in charge of my own health and my own process of getting over things, but I have to do it.
Yep.
I think uh, that's been a big thing for me. Is yeah, you can have your support system, you can have all the tools in the world, but if you're not doing the work, then you're not going to get better. And that's something that I think I was doing pretty well like a couple years ago. Obviously, like we said, like I had gotten worse over the years. I was doing better for a while. I think one of the big problems that I had started struggling again so deeply was because I had stopped putting in the work. I thought, well, I'm doing the steps, I'm still maintaining therapy, I'm taking my medication. That's all I need to do. But it's a process you got to keep up with. So I think it's like, oh, well, you can't just be like, well, I'm checking in the therapy every week and then checking the box as part of my like process. No, you got to like actually like maintain what you're doing. So establishing a routine, enjoying the healthy, constructive hobbies that I like to do. I like a lot of sports. He's a big baseball fan. Even though my team definitely might be the contribution to some anger problems. I'm a Mets fan, so they're currently not doing too well. But um, I love sports because it just gives me a nice distraction of wow, this is just a cool experience to go to. Uh, I'm trying to find new ways of kind of expressing myself So I like to go to like antique thrifting places. I like vintage stuff. So I'm trying to like redo kind of areas in my house with like cool vintage stuff like that. Just healthy ways of creating new space and stuff like that. So being creative in my household, really establishing a healthy routine of not chores, but tasks that make me feel like actually accomplished.
Yeah.
I think the biggest part of any recovery, whether it's recovering from a mental health crisis or recovering from, a substance abuse problem or recovering from, I mean, it could be any kind of problem or addiction or mental health, anything. I think if what you do when you are coping with it or recovering from it, that would be constructive.
Like that.
And I don't mean like constructive in it even has to build like your life around. I mean like, is it something that not in the moment is helping you, but is something you can build off of in the future? So it's like if that's like establishing, if it's establishing of a specific type of toothpaste that you like to use every night or whatever every morning, it's like that's constructive. It's even just a little thing that you've done to improve your routine because now you found something that works for you rather than just like, oh, I guess let's pick whatever off the shelf and now I'm just like being miserable. That's like the smallest little detail. That's the smallest little detail I could think of. But I think that matters too, is like even with the little things, like you have to be like the littlest details. Is it for you? Like, is it being constructive to bettering yourself? Like, I think a lot of people sometimes put up with stuff because, well, that's just how it has to be. No, you don't have to deal with that. You can do stuff to better yourself, even if it is taking the time to find a toothpaste that you like rather than just settling for whatever you grabbed off the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
What are some of the best coping skills that you think you learned recently?
yeah, I think the best thing that I've learned recently is it comes from substance abuse recovery, but I think it can be applied to anything is moving muscle chains of thought.
Yep.
Which when I heard that, it kind of blew my mind. I think a big problem that I've struggled with is just kind of sitting around, like doom scrolling or just like lying down because, yeah, it feels good because I'm not doing anything, but it doesn't really actually feel good. And actually, just even just moving to a different area in the house, getting up even for a minute has really just like completely changed my mindset. And it changes even like, I think anyone dealing with any kind of problem, whether it's mental health, whether it's even like a work problem, even if it's like a family problem. I think changing your environment or you're moving in a different way, I think can really help. So I think the thing that's really helped a lot too is learning different coping skills like that from different areas of different kinds of recovery methods. Like for me, I've never personally gone through a substance abuse recovery. For me, it's always mental health recovery, but I'm learning things from those kinds of therapies and those kinds of recovery methods that are really applicable to everything else that I've gone through. And so it's been really eye opening that there's so many healthy ways, like even taking a comb and just putting your finger, like running your finger over the comb when you're like feeling a little overwhelmed, just like resetting yourself physically. If you're having like a panic attack, like putting an ice pack on your neck, like where the artery is, apparently that like it just really, I tried it. It really just calms you down super quickly because it just like evens your heart rate and stuff.
Wow.
So just little things, I had the coping methods that I thought were just all I had was like music and art, but also how to apply those. Like I don't have to just make art for everyone to see. Just doing art just for me to just make something has been really helpful. That's been really cool. Getting back to just creating, I think has been really helpful.
My last and favorite question. If somebody came into this room that was struggling with mental health recovery or addiction recovery, what do you think the best piece of support or advice you could give them would be?
I think I would give them two parts. The first part is kind of bum back to what I said earlier is that you have to put in the work, but you're your own hero. You can advocate for yourself. And if they walked into this room looking for support, that means they already took the first step. I think just even seeking out help is the biggest thing you can do. And going off of that, the bad day, for example, you're having, you only have to experience that once. You might have other bad days in the future. that might feel similar, but the specific bad day or happen, we only have that day once. If you're having a bad day on, April 2nd, 2026, April 2nd, 2026, that's only one that happens one time. You never have to experience it again. So I think mixing those two things together is like you really are your own advocate. And even just taking that one first step shows that you're have the willingness to get better, even when you don't think you do. And I've met a lot of people, especially in therapy and group therapies and different stuff like that, who say, "Well, I'm not getting better," and it's like, "Well, you're here, you're putting in the work, so you're not the same as you were before because before you weren't asking for help, before you weren't looking for healthy ways to cope." So you're already getting better in the sense that you're showing up and doing the work and putting the effort in. And I think people don't see that in the moment when they're like, "Oh, well, I'm not the same." Well, yeah, you aren't the same.
Dude, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on today. Thank you for being our first guest.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate it.
Of course.